I cut contact with my abusive mother after she punched me in the face at a restaurant. Years later, she tried to control my wedding and is now demanding access to my newborn daughter. I am a 28-year-old man, and if there's one thing I learned in my life, it is that DNA is just a chemical sequence, not a suicide pact. You don't owe your sanity to the people who gave you life, especially when they view your life as an extension of their own ego. My mother is what you might call a covert narcissist with a violent streak. To the outside world, she is a charming, church-going matriarch who bakes casseroles for sick neighbors. Behind closed doors, she is an emotional arsonist who would burn down her own house just to complain about the ash. I spent the first 2 decades of my life walking on eggshells, trying to predict the weather patterns of her moods, but the tether finally snapped 6 years ago at an Olive Garden on my 22nd birthday. It was supposed to be a celebration. I had just graduated college and landed a junior position at a logistics firm. I was proud. For the first time, I felt like I had a future that didn't involve managing her crises. We were at dinner, me, my father, and her. My father is a quiet man, a classic enabler who learned decades ago that the only way to survive her is to play dead. I made the mistake of mentioning that my new job might require me to move about 2 hours away to the company's regional hub. I didn't say I was leaving forever. I just said I was moving 2 hours down the interstate. The air at the table instantly changed. You know that feeling when the barometric pressure drops right before a storm? That was her. She went quiet, that terrifying vacuum-sealed silence that usually preceded a detonation. She put her fork down. She stared at me with eyes that looked like shark glass. Then she started picking. First, she criticized my degree, saying marketing was a fake career. Then she went after my appearance, telling me my tie looked cheap and that I had gained weight in my face. Finally, she raised her voice, causing heads to turn at nearby tables, and accused me of abandoning her after everything she sacrificed to raise me. I did something I had never done before. I set a hard boundary. I looked her in the eye and said, "Mom, if you can't be happy for me, or at least polite, we can end the dinner right now." She didn't take it well. She stood up in the middle of the restaurant, her face turning that mottled purple color she gets when she loses control. She screamed that I was an ungrateful brat, a waste of space. When I stood up to put cash on the table and leave, she lunged. She didn't slap me. She balled her manicured hand into a fist and punched me square in the jaw. It wasn't a love tap. It was a solid connection. I stumbled back, stunned, tasting copper in my mouth. The restaurant went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. My father just sat there, staring at his breadsticks, terrified to intervene, shrinking into a seat like he wanted to disappear. I didn't hit her back. I didn't scream. I just walked out. I got in my car, drove away, and blocked her number before I even left the parking lot. That was the last time I spoke to her for 6 years. I rebuilt my life in those 6 years. I moved to that new city. I excelled at my job. I met my wife. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah is the exact opposite of my mother, kind, rational, emotionally intelligent, and incapable of manipulation. We built a home filled with peace, something I never had growing up. I heard through the grapevine, mostly my spineless aunts who acted as my mother's flying monkeys, that my mother had spun a narrative that I was on drugs or in a cult, or that my controlling girlfriend was holding me hostage. She couldn't accept that I left because of her, so she invented a reality where I was a victim of someone else. I didn't care. I was free. Then came the wedding. We kept it small and locked down tight. We hired private security specifically because I knew my mother's patterns. If she can't control an event, she destroys it. Sure enough, an hour before the ceremony, the security team radioed me, a woman in a white dress. Yes, she wore a white dress to her son's wedding she wasn't invited to, showed up at the venue gate screaming that she was a mother of the groom and had a constitutional right to be there. My security guys were professionals. They showed her the trespassing notice I preemptively filed with the venue and turned her away. I didn't even know it happened until the reception was over. It was a perfect day. But the real war, the one that nearly broke us, started 10 months ago when Sarah got pregnant. We didn't post on social media. We didn't tell extended family. We locked our profiles down. But small towns of eyes and my father, despite being a coward, is a gossip. He must have let it slip to her during one of her interrogations. The first sign that the wall had been breached was the packages. They started arriving at our doorstep about 6 months into the pregnancy. High-end cribs, strollers, boxes of organic diapers. No return address. Just notes that said, "Grandma loves you," or "See you soon." It wasn't sweet. It was terrifying. It was a message. It was her saying, "I know where you live. I know what you're having. I am here." I returned everything to the sender. I hired a lawyer to send a formal cease and desist letter, telling her to stop contacting us and to stop sending items. I thought that would be enough to scare her off. I was wrong. It just enraged her. That's when entitlement shifted from passive-aggressive to aggressive-aggressive. She started calling my wife's workplace. Sarah is a pediatric nurse at a major hospital. My mother managed to navigate the phone tree and get the direct line to Sarah's department head. She told Sarah's boss that my wife was mentally unstable, stealing narcotics from the supply closet, and, this is the worst part, using heroin while pregnant. These weren't just insults. These were accusations that could end Sarah's career and trigger a CPS investigation before the baby was even born. Fortunately, Sarah's boss is a sane human being who has known Sarah for 5 years. He called us into his office, looking grave. "I received a disturbing call," he said. He played the voicemail. It was my mother, her voice slurring slightly. She loves her midday Chardonnay, saying, "You need to fire that woman before she kills a kid. She's an addict and she's stolen my son." We had to file a police report for harassment just to have a paper trail to protect Sarah's nursing license. We played the voicemail for the officer. He took notes, looked sympathetic, but gave us the standard line. "It's hard to prosecute harassment without a direct threat of violence, but we'll file a report so it's on the record." Then came the grandparents' rights threat. A week before Sarah's due date, I got a letter from a lawyer. He was a cheap strip mall ambulance chaser, but a lawyer nonetheless. My mother was threatening to sue for visitation rights immediately upon the birth of the child. She claimed that by alienating the child from its ancestral heritage, we were causing psychological harm. She demanded unsupervised visits every other weekend starting when the baby was 2 weeks old. I consulted my own attorney, a shark named Harrison, who deals with high-conflict family law. Harrison literally laughed when he read the letter. In this state, and frankly in most states under the Troxel versus Granville Supreme Court ruling, grandparents have zero standing to demand visitation if the parents are married and fit. She's blowing smoke. She has absolutely no case. She's trying to intimidate you into compliance. But she wasn't just trying to scare us. She was trying to stress Sarah into early labor. She was trying to break our unity. The baby came 2 weeks later. A beautiful little girl. The labor was hard, 20 hours of intensity, and Sarah was exhausted. We were in the recovery room, enjoying that golden hour of silence, just staring at this tiny human we had made, when the nurse's station buzzed. "Sir," the nurse said over the intercom, her voice tight with stress. "There's a woman here claiming to be the grandmother. She's escalating." My stomach dropped. I kissed Sarah on the forehead and walked out to the hallway. My mother was there at the locked double doors of the maternity ward, trying to shove past the security guard. She looked older, haggard, her eyes wild with that manic glint I remember from my childhood. She was holding a massive teddy bear and a bouquet of lilies, which are toxic to cats, and we have 2, which she knows. "I have a right to see my granddaughter," she was screaming at the guard. "That is my blood. You can't keep me out." I stepped into her line of sight through the glass. She froze. Then she smiled. It was that sick, twisted smile that assumes forgiveness is automatic because she wants something. She waved, like she hadn't just tried to get my wife fired. "Oh, look at you," she cooed, shouting through the glass. Daddy mode. "Let me in, I brought gifts." Stop being silly. I pressed the button on the intercom. "If you take one more step," I said, my voice low and shaking with rage, "I will have you arrested for trespassing. We have a cease and desist. You are not welcome here. You will never meet her." Her face contorted. The mask fell instantly. "You ungrateful little bastard," she screamed, spit flying against the glass. "I gave you life. You owe me this. You think you can keep my grandbaby from me because your whore wife whispered poison in your ear. Leave," I said. "Now." Security physically escorted her out while she screamed obscenities that made the nurses blush. I went back to the room and held my daughter, promising her she would never know that chaos. We went home 3 days later. I didn't feel like a new dad. I felt like a warden. I installed cameras everywhere. Ring doorbell, floodlight cameras on the driveway, cameras in the backyard, and an indoor camera in the living room. I upgraded our deadbolts to commercial-grade locks. I put shatterproof film on the ground floor windows. I felt like I was preparing for a siege, not fatherhood. For 2 weeks, it was quiet. Too quiet. My father called me once, begging. "Just let her come over for an hour," he pleaded. "She's going crazy, son. She just wants a picture. She wants to put on Facebook. So her friends know she's a grandma. Just give her what she wants so we can have peace." Peace. I laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. "Dad." She called Sarah a heroin addict to her boss. She tried to ruin our lives. There is no peace with a terrorist. If she comes here, I'm calling the cops. And if you tell her when we're home or give her a key, you are dead to me too. "She's your mother," he mumbled. The eternal excuse of the enabler. "She's a stranger who punched me in the face and threatened my wife. I corrected. Do not test me on this." I hung up. I knew he wouldn't listen. He never did. He was too afraid of her to respect me. The climax happened last Friday. It was a dark, stormy night. Cliché, I know, but it was pouring rain. Sarah was upstairs nursing the baby. I was in the kitchen cleaning bottles, exhausted, running on 3 hours of sleep. I got a notification on my phone. Motion detected. Driveway. I pulled up the feed. It wasn't a car I recognized. It was a rental sedan. My mother got out. She wasn't alone. She had a man with her. Some guy I didn't know, holding a professional-looking video camera. She was planning to film this. She wanted a confrontation for social media. She wanted to play the victim who was denied access so she could garner sympathy from her echo chamber. She wanted to stage a welfare check to prove we were unfit. I didn't open the door. I checked the locks and watched the monitor. She pounded on the front door. "Open up. I know you're in there. I have rights. I have a lawyer. Go away." I yelled through the door, not unlocking it. "The police are on their way. I called them the second you pulled in." "I'm not leaving until I hold that baby," she screamed. "I know you're hurting her. I'm here to save her." She was delusional. She had convinced herself of her own lies. Then she did something that crossed the line from harassment to felony. She realized I wasn't opening the front door, so she walked around to the back patio. We have large French doors there, glass panes from top to bottom. I saw her pick up a heavy ceramic planter, one Sarah had hand-painted during her second trimester. She hurled it through the glass. The sound was explosive. It sounded like a gunshot. Shards of glass sprayed across the living room rug. The wind and rain blew, and immediately, the baby started screaming upstairs from the noise. My mother reached through the jagged broken pane and unlocked the door from the inside. She stepped into my living room, glass crunching under her boots. The man with the camera stayed outside on the patio, looking suddenly unsure of whether he wanted to be an accomplice to a break-in. He lowered the camera. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, blocking the way to the second floor where my wife and daughter were. I had grabbed a baseball bat from the hall closet. I didn't swing. I just stood there. I needed her to commit. I needed the indoor camera, which was recording everything in 4K, to see every move. "Where is she?" my mother hissed. She looked demonic. Her wet hair was plastered to her face, her mascara running, her eyes dilated and black. "Give me the baby. You aren't fit to raise a goldfish. Get out of my house," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "You just committed burglary and breaking and entering." "It's not burglary if it's family," she shrieked. "I have a right to inspect this home. I have a right to protect my blood." She lunged for the stairs. I shoved her back. Not a punch, just a hard, forceful shove to the chest to keep distance. She stumbled back and hit the wall. "You hit your mother," she screamed, looking back at the guy outside. "Did you record that? He assaulted me. He's violent." She reached into her oversized purse. For a split second, I thought she had a gun. My heart stopped. I thought, this is it. She's going to kill me. But she pulled out a canister of pepper spray, the kind designed for bears. "Move," she said, raising the can and pointing at my face. "Move out of the way, or I swear to God I'll blind you." She was threatening me with a chemical weapon in my own home, with my newborn upstairs. "Do it," I said, staring her down, tightening my grip on the bat. "Do it and see what happens. You will never leave this house." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. The man outside turned and ran to the rental car, peeling out of the driveway, leaving her there. She panicked. The reality of the situation finally seemed to pierce her delusion. She looked at the broken window, the bat in my hand, the blue lights flashing against the living room walls through the rain. "I just wanted to see her," she sobbed, the victim switch flipping instantly. She dropped the pepper spray. "Why are you doing this to me? Why do you hate me?" The police kicked the front door open, guns drawn. They saw a woman standing amidst broken glass, and a man with a bat. "Drop it. Hands in the air," they yelled at both of us. I put the bat down slowly and raised my hands. She broke in. I said calmly. She threw a planter through the back door. She has pepper spray on the floor. She threatened me. My mother threw her hands up, sobbing theatrically. "He invited me. He attacked me. I'm just a grandmother trying to drop off gifts. He's crazy." They didn't buy it. The broken glass, the rain blowing in, the mud on her boots, and the fact that I was a homeowner standing between her and the stairs told a story. They cuffed her. She was screaming as they dragged her out into the rain. "This is elder abuse. I'll sue you. I'll take that baby. You're unfit. My son is on drugs." Sarah came to the top of the stairs, holding our daughter, shaking like a leaf. I ran up and held them both while the officers cleared the house and took statements. Here is where the revenge gets satisfying. True, legal, cold revenge. Because she broke into an occupied dwelling with the intent to commit a crime, assault/kidnapping/unlawful imprisonment, and because she was armed with pepper spray, the district attorney didn't charge her with simple trespassing or vandalism. They charged her with first-degree burglary. In my state, that is a violent felony because the home was occupied. They also tacked on aggravated stalking because of the prior police reports regarding the workplace calls and the packages, and assault with a deadly weapon for pointing the pepper spray. At her arraignment the next morning, her lawyer, the strip mall guy, tried to argue for low bail, saying she was a respectable community member having a mental health crisis and that it was a family misunderstanding. I was there. I handed the prosecutor the USB drive with the security footage. The judge watched the video in his chambers. He saw the timeline. He watched her throw a heavy ceramic planter through a glass door. He watched her step over the shards. He heard her scream that she would take that baby. He saw her pull the pepper spray. The judge came back out and looked at her with pure disgust. "Ma'am, this isn't a grandmother wanting a visit. This is a home invasion. You terrorized a family with a newborn." Bail was set at $250,000. She didn't have it. My father refused to put up their house to cover it. Turns out, watching the footage of his wife try and pepper spray his son was his breaking point. He finally grew a spine. He told her lawyer, let her sit. She sat in county jail for 4 months awaiting trial. When the plea deal came, she took it. She realized the jury would crucify her after seeing that video. She pleaded guilty to burglary and stalking to avoid the maximum sentence of 20 years. She got 5 years, 2 years in state prison, 3 years probation. But the real kicker, the thing that destroyed her more than the prison cell, was the permanent restraining order. The judge granted a lifetime order of protection for me, Sarah, and our daughter. The order has a specific clause: no third-party contact. This means she cannot ask aunts, uncles, cousins, or friends to ask about us. She cannot ask my father about us. If she directs anyone to contact us, she violates her probation and goes back to prison for the remainder of her sentence. She has been effectively erased from our lives. My father filed for divorce a month ago. He's selling their house to pay for her legal fees, which I am also suing her for in civil court, by the way. I'm going after every penny for the custom French doors, the emotional distress, the therapy bills for Sarah, and the security system upgrades. My dad visits us sometimes now. He meets his granddaughter in the park. He's apologized profusely, but the trust is thin. He knows he's on thin ice. He knows that if he passes a single message from her, he loses us forever. I received a letter from her in prison last week. It was intercepted by my lawyer because all her mail has to be screened due to the restraining order. It was 4 pages of blaming me. She said I provoked her. She said I owed her my life. She said she forgave me for sending her away and that she would be waiting for me to come to my senses. My lawyer sent a copy of that letter to her parole officer and the DA. That letter counted as contact. It was a violation of protective order. It likely added 6 months to her time inside, or at least ensured she won't be getting out early for good behavior. She just can't help herself. Her entitlement is her prison, literally and figuratively. She is sitting in a cell right now, convincing herself she is the martyr, while I am sitting here watching my daughter learn to roll over. My daughter is 6 months old now. She has Sarah's eyes and my chin. She smiles constantly. She will never know the woman who calls herself her grandmother. She will never know what it's like to walk on eggshells or fear a sudden explosion of rage over a spilled glass of milk. She will know peace. She will know boundaries. And she will know that her father will stand at the bottom of the stairs with a bat to keep the monsters away, even if the monster shares his DNA. Breaking the cycle isn't a passive act. It's a war, and I won. If you want to see the exact brand of shatterproof glass that held up against the first 2 throws before breaking, and want a tutorial on how to file a restraining order that actually sticks, hit subscribe. I'll be posting the updates from civil court, and trust me, you don't want to miss the itemized bill I'm sending her for planner.